I'm Claire, 32, and I'm currently eating my Thanksgiving dinner in my parents' kitchen like some kind of family exile. The smell of my mom's famous roasted turkey drifts through the doorway, along with the sound of laughter from the dining room where apparently everyone else is worthy enough to sit. Well, everyone except me, because according to my drama queen sister Sarah, my presence might embarrass her in front of her new wealthy boyfriend. And my parents? They actually agreed with her. 20 minutes ago, I was standing in that very dining room, plate in hand, ready to join what I thought was a family meal. That's when Sarah pulled her Oscar-worthy performance, convincing Mom and Dad that having me at the table would somehow ruin her big moment of introducing Mr. Wonderful to the family. Because heaven forbid Sarah doesn't get to be the absolute center of attention for 5 minutes. So here I am, perched on a kitchen stool like a child in timeout, mechanically cutting my turkey while listening to my sister play the perfect hostess in the next room. The irony would be funny if it weren't so pathetic. I left my beautiful, quiet apartment and drove 3 hours to be here, thinking maybe this year would be different. Maybe this year I'd actually feel like I belonged in this family. I should have known better. Sarah has been pulling stunts like this since we were kids, and somehow I keep falling for it. Where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments below and hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever felt like the family outsider. You'll definitely want to stick around for what happened next. Let me back up and explain how I ended up eating Thanksgiving dinner in exile. This story actually starts way before today, back when Sarah and I were just kids, and my parents first decided which daughter deserved their attention. Growing up in the Morrison household meant learning early that there were rules about who mattered and who didn't. Sarah, my baby sister by 5 years, had always been the golden child, the one who could do no wrong, the one whose every achievement deserved a celebration, and whose every setback required the entire family to rally around her. Me? I was the dependable one, the responsible one, the one who didn't need attention because I had my life figured out, which, looking back, was just code for, we don't want to deal with Claire's needs because Sarah's are louder. When I was 16 and Sarah was 11, I saved up money from my part-time job at the local bookstore to buy my first car. Nothing fancy, just a used Honda Civic that would get me to school and work. I was so proud of that little car. I'd researched insurance rates, negotiated with the seller, and handled all the paperwork myself. The day I drove it home, Sarah took one look and burst into tears. Not happy tears, full-on sobbing, dramatic tears. "Why does Claire get a car and I don't?" she wailed to our parents. "It's not fair." Never mind that she was 11 and couldn't even reach the pedals. Never mind that I'd worked 30 hours a week for 8 months to afford it. Sarah wanted what I had. And in the Morrison house, what Sarah wanted, Sarah got. Within 3 weeks, my parents had co-signed for a brand new Toyota Camry that would be waiting for Sarah when she turned 16. They presented it to her like some kind of consolation prize, sitting in our driveway with a giant bow on top, while she clapped her hands like she'd just won the lottery. The message was clear. Claire's accomplishments meant Sarah needed to be compensated for the terrible injustice of not achieving them first. This pattern repeated itself throughout our childhood. When I made honor roll, Sarah got a shopping spree because academics don't come as easily to her. When I won a scholarship to college, Sarah got a European graduation trip because she deserved something special too. When I bought my first apartment at 25, Sarah needed her own place near campus because living in the dorms was beneath her social status. The crazy part? I kept thinking things would change, that eventually Sarah would mature and my parents would see how unfairly they'd treated me. That maybe, just maybe, they'd start celebrating my wins without immediately figuring out how to make Sarah feel better about them. The worst part wasn't even the obvious favoritism. It was how they made me feel guilty for wanting anything at all. Like my desires were somehow selfish, while Sarah's wants were perfectly reasonable family obligations. When I got promoted to senior marketing coordinator at 28, I called home excited to share the news. "That's nice, honey," Mom said absently. Then, not 2 seconds later, "Oh, speaking of work, Sarah's been having such a hard time at her new job. The commute is really wearing her down. You don't suppose you could help her with a car payment? Just until she gets established." Sarah was 23 at the time, with a college degree I'd helped pay for and a job that paid more than mine had at her age. But somehow, her financial planning was my responsibility. I said no. For the first time in my life, I actually said no to helping Sarah. And you'd have thought I'd announced I was joining a cult. The guilt trips lasted for weeks. Phone calls about how family helps family and how disappointed they were in my selfishness. That's when I learned to keep my achievements to myself. When I got promoted to marketing manager 6 months later, I didn't tell them. When I got promoted again to senior manager, silence. When the company offered me the CEO position last month, I figured it was easier to let them keep thinking I was just some mid-level employee who worked a lot and dressed nicely. Because here's the thing about people like Sarah. They can't handle anyone else succeeding unless they're succeeding more. And people like my parents can't handle their golden child feeling inferior, so they'll tear down whoever makes her feel that way. I'd learned to make myself smaller around my family, to downplay my achievements, avoid talking about my work, and definitely never mention how well I was actually doing. It was easier than dealing with the inevitable fallout when Sarah decided she deserved whatever I had worked for. The ironic part? I loved my life. I had a beautiful apartment in the city, work that challenged and fulfilled me, and 3 cats who gave me more unconditional love than my family ever had. I was happy living quietly, achieving my goals without fanfare, and keeping my success to myself. But I was still naive enough to think that showing up for family holidays meant I'd be treated like family. So when Thanksgiving rolled around this year, I was actually looking forward to it. I'd been working crazy hours preparing for the CEO transition, and the idea of mom's home cooking and a relaxing day with family sounded perfect. I even brought flowers and a bottle of wine, thinking maybe this would be the year we could all just enjoy each other's company. I should have known something was up when I walked in, and Sarah immediately got that pinched look on her face. You know the one. Like she'd just smelled something unpleasant but was trying to be polite about it. "Oh," she said, looking me up and down in my nice but not flashy sweater and jeans. "I didn't realize you were coming." I blinked. "It's Thanksgiving, Sarah. I come every year." "Yes, but..." She glanced toward the living room where I could hear Dad watching football. "I'm bringing someone special today. Someone really important. I just thought maybe this year you might want to, do your own thing." "My own thing? On Thanksgiving?" "Right. Who are you bringing?" I asked, hanging up my coat and trying to keep my voice neutral. Sarah's whole demeanor shifted, the way it always did when she got to talk about something that made her feel important. "His name is David, and he's..." She paused dramatically. "He's really successful. Like, really successful. He works in finance, drives a BMW, has a place in the city. He's everything I've been looking for." I nodded politely while mentally rolling my eyes. Sarah had a habit of dating guys for their bank accounts, and then acting like she'd discovered some hidden treasure that the rest of us were too stupid to appreciate. "That's great, Sarah. I'm happy for you." "Are you?" Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Because I really need this to go well, Claire. David comes from a certain kind of background, and I want to make the right impression." And there it was. The real reason she looked uncomfortable about my presence. Not because she was genuinely excited to introduce her new boyfriend to family, but because she was worried I might somehow mess up her carefully crafted image. Because in Sarah's world, everything was about how things looked, how successful she appeared, how impressive her life seemed. And apparently, having a sister who just lived a normal, quiet life didn't fit the narrative she was trying to sell. "What exactly are you worried I'm going to do?" I asked, genuinely curious about what scenario was playing out in Sarah's head. She shifted uncomfortably, glancing toward the kitchen where I could hear Mom pulling dishes out of the oven. "It's just, David's really sophisticated, okay? He's used to a certain type of family, professional people, successful people. And you," she gestured vaguely in my direction. "And I what, Sarah? You live alone with 3 cats, Claire. You never talk about your work, you don't have a boyfriend, and frankly, you always seem kind of stuck. I just don't want him to think our family is weird or anything." The words hit me like a slap, but not because they hurt. Because they were so perfectly Sarah. She'd managed to take my choice to keep my life private and turn it into evidence of failure. My decision to live quietly became proof that I was somehow defective. "Sarah, honey," Mom's voice called from the kitchen. "Can you come help me with the gravy?" Sarah shot me one more worried look before heading toward the kitchen. I followed, partly to see if I could help, and partly because I was morbidly curious about how this conversation would play out. "Mom," Sarah said, immediately launching into her concern, "I'm really nervous about David meeting everyone. This is such an important day for me, and I just want everything to be perfect." Mom looked up from the stove, her face automatically shifting into that nurturing, problem-solving expression she always got when Sarah needed something. "What's wrong, sweetie? What can we do to help?" "It's just..." Sarah glanced at me meaningfully. "I'm worried about the impression we'll make. David's from a really successful family, and I don't want him to think we're not on his level." I watched this exchange with a kind of fascinated horror. Sarah was actually doing this. She was actually going to convince our parents to disinvite me from Thanksgiving dinner because my presence might embarrass her. "What are you suggesting?" Mom asked carefully. "Maybe Claire could eat in the kitchen? Just for today? So David and I can have some family time without any distractions." The kitchen fell silent except for the bubbling of the gravy. Dad had wandered in during this exchange, and now all 3 of them were looking at me like I was a problem that needed solving. "Claire," Dad said finally, using that reasonable tone that had always made me feel like my feelings were unreasonable. Would you mind? Just this once? It would really help Sarah out. And there it was. The moment I'd been training for my entire life. The moment when my family asked me to make myself smaller, to disappear, to sacrifice my comfort for Sarah's benefit. The moment when I was supposed to smile and say, of course, and pretend like this was a totally normal request. Instead, I just stood there, looking at these three people who were supposed to love me unconditionally, watching them collectively decide that I was expendable. You want me to eat Thanksgiving dinner alone in the kitchen? I said slowly, just to make sure I understood correctly. Because my presence at the family table might give Sarah's boyfriend the wrong impression about our family. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Dad cleared his throat. It's just for today, sweetheart. You understand. Actually, I did understand. I understood perfectly. This was the logical conclusion of 32 years of being the less important daughter. The expendable one. The one whose feelings mattered least. Fine, I said quietly. I'll eat in here. The relief on their faces was almost comical. Like they'd been expecting a fight and were pleasantly surprised by my compliance. Sarah actually smiled at me, probably thinking this proved I was finally learning my place in the family hierarchy. I made myself a plate in silence while they bustled around, setting the dining room table with the good china and discussing how to present our family in the best possible light for David's benefit. I wasn't included in these preparations, of course. I was just the problem they'd successfully solved. So here I am, eating turkey and stuffing off a paper plate while balancing on a kitchen stool, listening to the sound of my family entertaining a stranger in the room I'm apparently not good enough to occupy. The funny thing is, I'm not even angry anymore. I'm just done. Done pretending this is normal. Done making excuses for people who clearly don't value me. Done showing up to family events where I'm treated like an unwelcome guest. I take another bite of turkey and hear the front door open, followed by Sarah's overly bright voice saying, David, you made it! Come in, come in. Everyone's so excited to meet you. Oh. Through the kitchen doorway, I can see Sarah practically bouncing on her toes as she leads a tall, well-dressed man into our living room. He's exactly what I expected. Expensive suit, perfect hair, the kind of confident posture that comes from never having to worry about money. Mom, Dad, Sarah's voice carries easily into the kitchen. This is David Chen. David, these are my parents, Linda and Robert Morrison. I can hear the introductions, the polite small talk, Sarah's nervous laughter as she tries to impress him with our family's charm. What I can't see from my exile in the kitchen is David's face, as he takes in our modest living room and my parents' eager-to-please demeanor. Then I hear something that makes me pause with my fork halfway to my mouth. That's a beautiful family photo, David says. Is that your sister in the picture? The woman in the blue dress? My breath catches. There's only one family photo prominently displayed in our living room, and it's from my cousin's wedding last year. I remember that blue dress. I remember how good I felt in it, how rare it was for me to feel truly confident in a family setting. Yes, Sarah's voice sounds suddenly smaller. That's Claire, my older sister. Claire Morrison? David's voice changes, becomes more focused. Wait, is she here today? I'd love to meet her. The silence from the dining room is deafening. I can practically feel Sarah's panic radiating through the walls. This should be interesting. I freeze with my fork halfway to my mouth as David's question hangs in the air. Through the kitchen doorway, I can see Sarah's face turning an interesting shade of pale while she scrambles to figure out how to handle this unexpected development. Sarah clears her throat, her voice taking on that strained quality it gets when she's trying to maintain control of a situation that's rapidly slipping away from her. She's not feeling well today, just a little under the weather. I almost laugh out loud. Of course, when in doubt, Sarah's go-to strategy is to lie. That's too bad, David says, and I can hear genuine disappointment in his voice. I was really hoping to thank her in person. Thank me? For what? Thank her? Dad's voice joins the conversation, and I can practically hear the confusion in his tone. For the bonus, David explains, as if this should be obvious. The company-wide performance bonus we all received last quarter. Claire's leadership has been incredible. Since she took over as CEO, the entire culture has changed. Employee satisfaction is up, productivity is through the roof, and our client retention rate has improved dramatically. The silence that follows this statement is so complete I can hear the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. CEO. I set down my fork very carefully, suddenly acutely aware of every sound in the house. The hum of the refrigerator, the distant sound of football announcers on the TV, the complete and utter lack of conversation coming from the dining room. I'm sorry, Mom's voice finally breaks the silence, high and thin. Did you say CEO? Of Morrison Industries, yes. Claire Morrison. She's been absolutely transformational for the company. I'm in the finance department, so I see the numbers directly. The quarterly reports since she took over have been extraordinary. Morrison Industries, the mid-sized consulting firm I'd been working at for 8 years, climbing my way up from entry-level analyst to senior manager to director, and finally, 3 months ago, to chief executive officer. The promotion I'd been too afraid to share with my family because I knew exactly what would happen. What's happening right now? There must be some mistake, Sarah says weakly. Our Claire works she does marketing or something. She's never mentioned being a CEO of a major company. David finishes helpfully. Well, perhaps she's modest about her achievements. That would be very much in character from what I've observed at work. She gives credit to her team, focuses on results rather than recognition. It's refreshing in corporate leadership, honestly. I can hear shuffling from the dining room, then Mom's voice, unsteady and confused. I'll go get her. She'll want to. Claire. Great. Here we go. I stand up slowly, smoothing down my sweater and taking a deep breath. Time to face the music. Or in this case, time to face my family's reaction to discovering that the daughter they've been treating like a failure is actually running a company. What do you think will happen next? Drop your predictions in the comments below. I walk into the dining room with my head held high, carrying myself with the same confidence I use when walking into board meetings. David stands immediately when he sees me, extending his hand with a genuine smile. Claire, I was hoping I'd get to meet you today. David Chen, I work in your finance department. David, I smile back, shaking his hand. It's nice to meet you. I hope you're enjoying your time with us. The rest of my family stands frozen around the dining table like mannequins in a department store window. Sarah looks like she's been hit by a truck. Mom and Dad are staring at me as if I've suddenly grown a second head. I was just telling your family about the incredible work you've been doing at Morrison Industries, David continues, oblivious to the family drama he's just detonated. That innovation initiative you launched last quarter has already saved us hundreds of thousands in operational costs. Thank you, I say simply. Though I should point out that the initiative's success is really due to the team's hard work. I just pointed them in the right direction. David nods enthusiastically. Exactly what I was telling them. Your leadership style has been remarkable. The way you've transformed the company culture, the focus on sustainable growth rather than quick profits. Honestly, it's been inspiring to watch. Out of the corner of my eye, I can see Sarah opening and closing her mouth like a fish out of water. She has no idea how to process this information, and frankly, I'm enjoying watching her try. Well, I say, glancing around at my family's shell-shocked faces, I should probably let you all get back to your dinner. David, it was lovely meeting you. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening. Wait, Dad finally finds his voice. Claire, honey, why don't you join us? There's plenty of room at the table. The irony is so thick you could cut it with a knife. 20 minutes ago, there wasn't room for me at this table because I might embarrass Sarah. Now that they know I'm successful, suddenly there's plenty of space. That's kind of you, Dad, but I was actually just getting ready to head home. I have some work to catch up on this weekend. I smile politely, the same smile I use with difficult clients. Professional, pleasant, and completely impenetrable. But Claire, Mom starts, her voice taking on that pleading quality she usually reserves for when Sarah needs something. We barely got to see you. Can't you stay a little longer? I think I've seen enough, I say quietly, but my voice carries clearly in the suddenly silent room. David looks confused by the obvious tension. Bute's too polite to comment. Sarah has finally closed her mouth, but her face has gone from pale to slightly green. Sarah? I turn to my sister with a smile that probably looks pleasant to David, but which Sarah correctly interprets as dangerous. Thank you for such a memorable Thanksgiving. I hope your evening continues to be everything you wanted it to be. With that, I collect my purse and coat from the front hall and head for the door, leaving behind a dining room full of people trying to process the fact that the family scapegoat just turned out to be the most successful person in the room. The best part? I can hear David asking Sarah how long I've been CEO as I close the front door behind me. I wake up the next morning to 17 missed calls and 34 text messages. 17. I count them twice to make sure I'm not hallucinating. The missed calls start at 6:47 a.m. and continue in regular intervals until about midnight. The text messages begin around the same time and show no signs of slowing down. I pour myself coffee and settle into my favorite armchair by the window, the one that overlooks the city skyline, and scroll through the digital chaos my family has unleashed upon my phone. Dad, 6:51 a.m. Claire, we need to talk. Call me. Mom, 7:03 a.m. Honey, why didn't you tell us about your job? We're so confused. Sarah, 7:15 a.m. Call me right now. The messages continue in this vein for hours. Confusion, demands for explanations, accusations of secrecy, and a few attempts at guilt-tripping that are almost impressive in their creativity. Mom, 9:22 a.m. Your father and I are hurt that you didn't trust us with such important news. We thought we had raised you to be more open with family. Sarah, 10:45 a.m. I can't believe you let me look like an idiot in front of David. He kept asking questions about your job, and I didn't know what to say. Dad, 11:30. We need to discuss this situation. As a family, this level of secrecy isn't healthy. I take a sip of my coffee and resist the urge to laugh. Secrecy isn't healthy? What about the family dynamic where one daughter gets exiled to the kitchen so she doesn't embarrass the other daughter? How healthy is that? But the really interesting messages start around noon, after they've apparently had time to process exactly what David told them about my position and the company's success. Sarah, 12:15 p.m. So you're really the CEO, like actually in charge of everything? Sarah, 12:18 p.m. David said something about bonuses. Are you making good money? And there it is. I can practically see the wheels turning in Sarah's head as she starts to calculate what my success might mean for her. The phone rings as I'm reading through the messages. Sarah's name flashes on the screen. I let it go to voicemail, then immediately listen to the message. Claire, it's me. Look, I know yesterday was weird, but we really need to talk. David was asking all these questions about your job, and I felt stupid not knowing anything. Call me back, okay? This is important. Important to whom, I wonder. I delete the voicemail and continue scrolling through my messages. The tone shift is fascinating to watch in real time. The early messages are hurt and confused. The middle ones are accusatory. But the later ones have a distinctly different flavor. By evening, the messages have taken on a whole new character. Gone are the hurt feelings and confused questions. Now we're getting to the real point of this family crisis. Sarah, 3:45 p.m. I've been thinking about what David said about the company doing so well. That's amazing, Claire. I'm really proud of you. Proud. Right. Sarah has never been proud of anything I've accomplished unless she could figure out how to benefit from it. Sarah, 4:12 p.m. You know, Mark and I have been talking about taking a trip to Europe next summer. Nothing crazy, just a couple weeks. I don't suppose you'd be interested in helping us plan something? You probably know all the best places to stay. Mark, Sarah's boyfriend from 2 relationships ago, who she's apparently back together with. And already she's thinking about European vacations funded by her newly discovered successful sister. Mom, 4:30 p.m. Your father and I have been talking, and we think it would be wonderful if you could join us for Christmas this year. Maybe you could help us plan something special. Since you're so successful now, you probably have great ideas about how to make holidays memorable. Translation. Now that we know you have money, we'd like you to pay for Christmas. Dad, 5:15 p.m. Claire, I've been thinking about that roof repair we've been putting off. Since you're doing so well professionally, maybe you could recommend a good contractor? Someone who does quality work? Also translation. We want you to pay for our roof. The messages keep coming throughout the evening, each one a masterclass in subtle manipulation. Suddenly, everyone wants my advice, my input, my expertise on everything from vacation planning to home improvement to investment strategies. Sarah, 6:45 p.m. I was telling David about how successful you are, and he mentioned that people in your position usually help family members with things like down payments and stuff. Not that I'm asking, just wondering if that's something you've thought about. And there it is. The real reason for this sudden outpouring of family interest. Not because they're proud of my success or want to celebrate my achievements. Because they want access to what they assume is my significantly improved financial situation. The final message of the night comes from Sarah at 11:30 p.m. Claire, I know you're probably busy with work stuff, but we really need to talk. This whole CEO thing changes everything, and I think we need to figure out how to handle it as a family. There are probably things we should discuss about helping each other out and making sure everyone benefits from your success. Call me tomorrow? I set my phone down and stare out at the city lights twinkling below my apartment window. 24 hours ago, these people were perfectly content to let me eat dinner alone in the kitchen because my presence might embarrass them. Now they want to figure out how everyone benefits from my success. The audacity is breathtaking, really. And the fact that they think I don't see exactly what they're doing? Almost insulting. I pick up my phone and start typing a response. Then I delete it. Then I start typing again. Then I delete that too. Actually, I think silence might be the best response here. Let them wonder. Let them stew in their own greed and confusion while they wait for me to call them back. Because here's what they don't understand. I've spent 32 years learning how this family operates. I know exactly what they want and why they want it. And for the first time in my life, I have the power to decide whether or not to give it to them. The calls and messages continue for 3 more days, each one more desperate than the last. each one revealing a little more about what my family really thinks our relationship should look like now that they know I'm successful. Sarah calls me at work on Tuesday afternoon. I let it go to voicemail, but I listened to the message during my lunch break. Claire, this is getting ridiculous. I know you're upset about Thanksgiving, but you're being dramatic. David keeps asking me about you, and I don't know what to tell him. He thinks our family is weird now because you won't talk to any of us. This is affecting my relationship, and that's not fair. Call me back. My silence is affecting her relationship. Not her behavior at Thanksgiving, not her attempt to exile me from family dinner, not her years of treating me like I was somehow defective. No, my silence is the problem. The voicemail continues. Look, I get it. You're successful now, and you want us to acknowledge it. Fine. We acknowledge it. You're the CEO. You make good money. You're important. Happy? Now can we move past this and talk about how we're going to handle things going forward? Because there are definitely ways we could all help each other out. Fascinating how Sarah thinks this is a mutual benefit situation when she's never helped me with anything in her entire life. Wednesday brings a call from Mom, which I also don't answer. Her voicemail is a masterpiece of guilt-tripping wrapped in maternal concern. Claire, honey, I'm worried about you. This isn't like you to cut off your family like this. We made a mistake on Thanksgiving, and we're sorry, but we can't fix it if you won't talk to us. Your father is very stressed about this whole situation, and you know his blood pressure problems. Sarah is crying every day because she thinks you hate her. This is tearing our family apart, and I don't understand why you're being so stubborn about it. Stubborn. I'm being stubborn by not immediately forgiving them and presumably opening my wallet to fund their various plans and dreams. The final straw comes on Thursday evening when Sarah shows up at my apartment building. The doorman calls up to announce her, and I tell him I'm not available. An hour later, my phone rings with a call from the lobby. Ms. Morrison, there's a young lady here who says she's your sister. She's quite upset and insisting that there's a family emergency. Should I send her up? What kind of family emergency? I ask, already knowing this is Sarah's latest manipulation tactic. I hear muffled voices. Then the doorman comes back on the line. She says your father is in the hospital. My blood runs cold for exactly 3 seconds before my brain kicks in and reminds me that Sarah has been lying about everything for the past week. I call Dad's cell phone directly. He answers on the second ring, clearly at home and watching television. Hi, Dad. I just wanted to check on you. Sarah told my doorman you were in the hospital. The silence on the other end tells me everything I need to know. Dad? Are you there? I'm here, Claire. I'm fine. Sarah? Sarah shouldn't have said that. No, she shouldn't have. More silence. Then, Claire, we really do need to talk about this situation. What situation is that, Dad? You know what situation, this whole CEO thing, the secrecy, the way you've been handling your success. Your mother and I have been discussing it, and we think there are some family responsibilities that come with your new position. Family responsibilities. Like funding Sarah's European vacation and paying for their roof repairs and whatever other expenses they've been dreaming up since they found out I have money. Dad, I say quietly, I need to ask you something, and I want you to really think about your answer. Okay. In the 32 years I've been your daughter, how many times have you celebrated my achievements without immediately finding ways to make Sarah feel better about them? The silence stretches so long, I wonder if the call has dropped. That's what I thought, I say finally. Give my regards to Sarah. Tell her the family emergency tactic was particularly creative, but I'm not interested in whatever conversation she thinks we need to have. I hang up and immediately block all 3 of their numbers. 6 months later, I'm sitting in my office on the 32nd floor, reviewing quarterly reports that confirm David was right about the company's trajectory. Revenue is up 40% from last year. Employee turnover is at an all-time low, and we've landed 3 major contracts that will carry us well into next year. My assistant knocks and enters with my afternoon coffee. The Times reporter is here for your interview, Ms. Morrison. Should I send her in? Give me 5 minutes, then yes. The interview is for a feature article about female leadership in corporate America, something I would never have agreed to 6 months ago, back when I was still hiding my success to avoid family drama. These days, I've stopped making myself smaller to accommodate other people's insecurities. It's amazing how much energy you get back when you stop pouring it into relationships that only drain you. My phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. For a moment, I wonder if it's one of my family members trying a new approach, but it's actually David Chen. Saw the news about the Morrison Industries expansion. Congratulations. Sarah mentioned you might be interested in grabbing coffee sometime to discuss the new finance department structure. I smile and delete the message without responding. David seems like a nice enough guy, but I have zero interest in any interaction that involves Sarah, even peripherally. Some bridges once burned should stay that way. The reporter arrives right on time. a sharp woman in her 40s who asks thoughtful questions about leadership philosophy and work-life balance. She doesn't ask about my family, which is a relief, though I suspect she's done enough research to know I keep my personal life very private. One last question, she says, checking her notes. What advice would you give to women who are struggling to be taken seriously in their careers? I think about this for a moment, considering all the ways I could answer it. The professional response about confidence and competence. The strategic response about building alliances and proving value. But what comes out is something more personal. Stop making yourself smaller to make other people comfortable. Stop hiding your achievements to avoid making others feel bad about theirs. And stop accepting relationships where you're expected to diminish yourself so someone else can shine brighter. She looks up from her notebook, clearly sensing there's a story behind that answer. But she's professional enough not to push. That's good advice, she says simply. After she leaves, I stay late to finish some budget projections, something I genuinely enjoy about this job. The work itself, the strategy, the problem solving, the satisfaction of building something successful from the ground up. It's fulfilling in a way that family relationships never were. Around 8 p.m., I pack up my things and head home to my quiet apartment, where my 3 cats greet me with the kind of unconditional affection my family never quite managed. I pour myself a glass of wine, order Thai food from my favorite place, and settle in to read a book I've been looking forward to all week. No guilt trips. No manipulation. No one expecting me to fund their dreams or apologize for my success. Just a peaceful evening in a life I've built exactly the way I wanted it. My phone sits silent on the coffee table, and for the first time in my adult life, that silence feels like freedom, rather than isolation. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. Sometimes it's just living well. If this story resonated with you, make sure to like and subscribe for more stories about finding your strength and building the life you deserve, even when family tries to tear you down.